The morning I saw my CEO changing behind a half-open conference room door, I thought my career was over before lunch. One accidental glance, one frozen second, one mistake I never meant to make, and suddenly the most powerful woman in the company was staring back at me with fear in her eyes instead of anger. I expected security to drag me out. I expected my access badge to stop working. I expected my life to fall apart. But what happened next did not destroy me. It saved me. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet moments that can change a person's entire future, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Lifeline Diaries for more emotional stories that remind us what it means to be human. My name is Arvin Hale, and at 29, I was the kind of man people passed in the hallway without remembering. I worked as a junior facilities coordinator at Veyron & Company, a glass-walled corporate tower downtown where everyone wore expensive shoes, spoke in sharp sentences, and measured a person's worth by job title. My job was simple. I made sure meeting rooms were ready, projectors worked, coffee machines were stocked, and important people never had to notice the small problems that kept their perfect days running smoothly. I arrived before sunrise, left after most executives had gone home, and carried a ring of keys that opened every room except the ones where decisions about people like me were made. That Tuesday was bright and unusually warm. Sunlight poured through the lobby windows like gold, making the marble floors shine so brightly that I could see my reflection in them. I had barely slept the night before because my mother's medical bills were stacked on our kitchen table, and my landlord had left another reminder under the door. I was one missed paycheck away from losing the apartment where my mother rested between hospital visits. Still, I came to work with my uniform pressed, my smile forced, and my fear tucked behind my ribs where no one could see it. At 10:15 a.m., I was asked to prepare the executive conference room for an emergency board meeting. The room had been reserved for noon, but someone from the CEO's office called down and said it needed to be ready immediately. I rushed up with fresh water bottles, clean notepads, and a tray of coffee cups, trying not to think about the rumor moving through the building that layoffs were coming. People had been whispering for weeks. Whole departments were suddenly quiet. Managers closed doors when assistants walked by. Everyone smiled less. The executive floor always felt like another world. The carpets were softer, the air colder, and even the silence seemed expensive. I pushed my cart down the hallway and noticed the CEO's private office door was shut, but the conference room beside it was slightly open. I knocked lightly, waited, heard nothing, and pushed the door wider with my shoulder while balancing the tray. That was when I saw her. Celine Marrow, the CEO of Veyron & Company, stood near the long window with her blazer off and the back of her blouse partly open as she struggled to change into another shirt. For one terrible second, I froze in the doorway, too shocked to move, too embarrassed to breathe. She turned sharply, clutching the fabric to herself, but the look on her face was not the fury I expected. It was panic. Behind her, on the chair, was a blouse stained with dark coffee, and on her shoulder, visible for only a moment, was a large medical patch taped against her skin. That I stumbled backward so fast the tray rattled. I lowered my eyes, apologized again and again, and turned to leave, but she said my name. Not you, not facilities, not staff. My name. Arvin. Her voice was low and trembling, and somehow that frightened me more than shouting would have. She asked me to close the door. I did, standing outside with my heart pounding so loudly I thought everyone on the floor would hear it. A minute later, she opened the door, dressed in a clean white blouse, her face composed again but her eyes still wounded. She told me it was an accident and asked if I had seen anything that concerned me. I wanted to say no and disappear, but something about the way she leaned slightly against the doorframe made me pause. She looked exhausted, not like the untouchable CEO on magazine covers, but like someone carrying pain through daylight and refusing to let it show. I quietly said I had only seen the coffee stain and that she might want a fresh towel with warm water before the meeting. Her expression changed then. It softened, just a little. That I brought the towel and left it outside the door. I thought that would be the end of it. For the rest of the morning, I worked with a knot in my stomach, waiting for a call from HR. Instead, at 1:30 p.m., her assistant found me near the supply closet and said Ms. Marrow wanted to see me. My legs felt weak as I walked back to the executive floor. I imagined every possible punishment. Termination. A formal complaint. Humiliation. But when I entered her office, Celine was sitting behind her desk with the blinds half open, sunlight cutting across her face. She looked powerful again, but tired in a way that no tailored suit could hide. She thanked me for my discretion. Then she asked how long I had worked there. I told her 4 years. She asked if I liked the job, and I gave the safe answer people give when they need their paycheck. I said I was grateful for it. She studied me quietly, then asked why I always volunteered for early shifts. I did not know how she knew that. I tried to shrug it off, but something in her silence made lying feel disrespectful. So I told her the truth. My mother had kidney disease. Morning shifts let me take her to afternoon appointments. Extra hours helped with bills. I spoke carefully, ashamed of how much my voice revealed. Celine looked away toward the city below. For the first time, I noticed a framed photo on her desk of a young boy with dark curls, grinning beside a hospital bed. Her fingers touched the frame briefly, almost unconsciously. She told me she understood hospitals more than she wished to. Then, without explaining, she dismissed me gently and told me to go back to work. That should have been a strange footnote in an ordinary day, but by evening everything changed. An email went out announcing restructuring. 37 employees were being let go. My department was included. My name was on the list. That I read the email in the basement office beside the maintenance lockers, and the room seemed to tilt. I thought of my mother sitting at home beside the window, waiting for me to bring her medicine. I thought of rent, bills, groceries, the hospital. I sat on an overturned crate and pressed my hands against my eyes, trying not to break down where someone might see me. I had spent years being invisible, and now even my invisibility was being taken away. At 6:10 p.m., my phone rang. It was Celine's assistant again. I went upstairs numb, expecting paperwork. Instead, Celine was standing by the same conference room window where I had accidentally seen her that morning. The city glowed behind her in late afternoon light. She said she had reviewed the layoff list and noticed my name. I did not know what to say. Then she told me she had removed it. I stared at her, unable to understand. She said the company needed a new role in executive operations, someone who knew the building, the people, the problems no one reported until they became expensive. She offered me a temporary position for 90 days. More responsibility. Better pay. Health benefits that would cover part of my mother's treatment. I felt my throat close. I thanked her, but she raised a hand and said not to thank her yet. She said kindness was not charity when someone had earned trust. The new job was harder than anything I had done before. I worked closer to executives, handled confidential schedules, coordinated emergency meetings, and learned how much pressure existed behind polished doors. Some people resented me immediately. They saw a facilities worker stepping into a role they thought belonged to someone with a degree from a famous university. A director named Orson Vale made it his mission to remind me I did not belong. He corrected my grammar in emails, questioned my decisions in front of others, and once asked loudly whether I knew which fork to use at a client lunch. I smiled through it because I needed the job too badly to defend my pride. Celine noticed more than she said. She never publicly protected me, but she gave me chances to prove myself. She asked for my opinions in meetings where I expected to stand against the wall. She sent me documents to review and told me not to confuse lack of experience with lack of intelligence. Slowly, I learned. I stayed late studying reports. I practiced speaking clearly. I made mistakes, fixed them, and came back early the next morning. One afternoon, about a month later, I found Celine sitting alone in the small rooftop garden during lunch. It was a bright day, the kind of day when the city looked almost kind from above. She had a folder open on her lap but was not reading it. Her hand trembled slightly around a paper cup of tea. I asked if she needed anything. She said no, then surprised me by asking how my mother was. I told her the new insurance had helped us schedule better treatment. My mother had cried when I told her. Celine smiled faintly, but her eyes filled with sadness. That was when she told me about her son, Callan. He had been sick for years, and although he was stable now, the fear had never left her body. The medical patch I had seen that morning was part of her own treatment too. Stress had worsened a condition she had hidden from the board because CEOs were not allowed to look fragile. She said people thought power protected you from pain, but sometimes it only forced you to suffer in better clothes. I never forgot that, from that day on, I stopped seeing her as a distant CEO and started seeing the lonely human being beneath the title. She was sharp, demanding, and sometimes intimidating, but she was also the person who answered hospital calls between investor meetings and kept a drawer full of children's drawings from employees' kids. She had built walls because people treated weakness like an opportunity. I understood walls. I had built my own from silence. The turning point came during a major presentation to investors. Orson had prepared the main operational report, but the numbers looked wrong to me. A vendor cost had been duplicated across 2 departments, making it seem like the company was bleeding more cash than it actually was. I checked 3 times before telling Celine. Orson dismissed me instantly, calling it a clerical misunderstanding. But Celine asked me to explain. My hands shook as I walked everyone through the discrepancy. The room went silent. The finance team confirmed I was right, that correction saved a division from being cut. More than 60 people kept their jobs because one error was caught before a vote. After the meeting, employees I barely knew came to thank me. Orson avoided my eyes. Celine said nothing dramatic, but as she passed me in the hallway, she nodded once with pride in her face, and that meant more than applause. Weeks later, my mother's condition worsened suddenly. I received the call during a strategy meeting and tried to step out quietly, but Celine saw my face. I told her I had to go. She did not ask for details. She simply took the folder from my hands and said family first. At the hospital, I sat beside my mother as afternoon sunlight spilled across her blanket. She squeezed my hand and said I looked different lately, less afraid. I told her about Celine, about the job, about how one humiliating accident had somehow opened a door. My mother smiled weakly and said sometimes God hides mercy inside moments that feel like disaster. My mother passed away 2 weeks later, peacefully, just after sunrise. I returned to work after the funeral feeling hollow. Grief made the office lights too bright and people's voices too far away. On my desk, I found a handwritten note from Celine. It said that love did not end when duty ended, and that I should take all the time I needed. Beneath it was a company policy update granting extended paid family leave to all full-time employees. She had changed it quietly after seeing what I went through months past. The temporary role became permanent. Then it became something larger. I was promoted into people operations, helping design support systems for employees dealing with illness, caregiving, grief, and financial emergencies. Celine gave me the authority to build what she called the Human Dignity Program. It began with a small fund and 1 counseling partnership. Within a year, it helped dozens of employees stay afloat during the worst moments of their lives. Near the end of that year, Celine invited me back to the same conference room where everything had begun. It was daytime again, sunlight bright on the table, the city alive beyond the glass. She told me she was stepping back for medical treatment and spending more time with her son. She said the board had finally learned that leadership did not mean pretending to be unbreakable. Then she thanked me. I laughed softly because she had changed my life, not the other way around. But she shook her head and said the morning I accidentally saw her at her most vulnerable, I had been given the chance to use that moment as power over her, gossip about her, or make her feel small. Instead, I chose dignity. And sometimes, she said, one person's dignity gives another person permission to become human again. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Diaries. Your support helps stories of kindness, second chances, and quiet miracles reach more people who may need hope today. Before the ending, please comment: kindness can change a life. If you believe one compassionate choice can open a door someone thought was closed forever. I still work at Veyron and Company, but the building feels different now. Not because the walls changed, or the carpets, or the glass elevators carrying important people to important rooms. It feels different because I know every person walking through those halls is carrying something unseen. A medical report. A sick parent. A broken marriage. A child they worry about. A fear they cannot say out loud. I learned that life can turn in one accidental second, not because mistakes are magical, but because what we do after them reveals who we are. I thought seeing my CEO changing would end my future. Instead, it taught me that the most life-changing moments often begin when someone is exposed, someone else chooses kindness, and both people walk away forever changed.